So, kind of following on the heels of the last video, in the past, Myredbook.com Republican felon, rapist, solicitor of rape, sexual assaulter, solicitor of sexual assault, sex trafficker, solicitor of sex trafficking, assaulter, solicitor of assaulting, attacker, solicitor of attacking, kickback receiver, solicitor of kickback receiving, kickback provider, solicitor of kickback providing, solicitor of murder, attempted murder, stalker, solicitor of stalking, cyberstalker, solicitor of cyberstalking, terrorist, solicitor of terrorism, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, etc., etc. Glen Chapel, 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051, 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051, 408-247-5330, 408-247-5330, 408-606-0620, 408-606-0620, has bragged quite frequently about these clandestine meetings that he had with the Myredbook.com Republican felon rapists, solicitors of rape, sexual assaulters, solicitors of sexual assault, sex traffickers, solicitors of sex trafficking, assaulters, solicitors of assault, attackers, solicitors of attacking, 422 PC death threat makers, cyberstalkers, solicitors of cyberstalking, stalkers, solicitors of stalking, attempted murder, solicitors of murder, libel writers, solicitors of libel writing, slanderers, solicitors of slandering, perjurers, suborners of perjury, solicitors of perjury, etc., etc., that call themselves po-po, that are actually just felon criminals, that work for the Myredbook.com Republican felon criminal terrorist organization that wants to be called a police department in Santa Clara, California, 95051, 95050. So Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc., etc., Glen Chapel frequently bragged about how he and the Myredbook.com Republican felon terrorists, etc., that call themselves po-po, would talk about all these criminal activities that they planned against me and against my family. These clandestine meetings would apparently take place while Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc., etc., Glen Chapel was supposedly bartending at the Santa Clara Convention Center. And the Myredbook.com Republican felon, terrorist, raping, soliciting, rape, etc., etc., felons that call themselves po-po and him, Myredbook.com Republican felon, Glen Chapel, supposedly planned on, damaging my credibility beyond repair, which it's already been damaged beyond repair illegally. They planned on continuing to RAPE me. They planned on rohypnoling and RAPING me. They planned on PING me out. They planned on making sure that I didn't talk about anything that I knew about by whatever means necessary. In other words, just more witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. And Myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., Glen Chapel made it exceedingly clear that if I didn't keep quiet, that he and the Myredbook.com Republican felons that call themselves Popo would murder my entire family. He made it exceedingly clear that they'd murder them and that it would be slow and painful deaths for all of my family members. In addition, Myredbook.com, Republican felon, etc., Glen Chapel, 2838 Concord Lane, Santa Clara, California, 95051, 408-247-5330, 408-247-5330, 408-606-0620, 408-606-0620. Yeah, he said that, he and the Myredbook.com Republican felons that call themselves Popo at the Myredbook.com Republican felonious criminal terrorist organization that wants to be known as a police department, they all conspired with the Myredbook.com Republican felonious mob Herbert family at George W. Herbert on Twitter, or George W. Herbert, at Scotch Ferry on Twitter, or Lee Thompson Herbert. And child, M-O-L-E-S-T-E-R, perjurer, suborner of perjury, solicitor of perjury, R-A-P-I-S-T, solicitor of R-A-P-E, stalker, solicitor of stalking, cyberstalker, solicitor of cyberstalking, assaulter, solicitor of assault, attacker, solicitor of attacking, etc., Richard Lyon Herbert. Yep. So the Myredbook.com Republican felonious terrorist organization that wants to be known as a Popo department, and all its Myredbook.com Republican felons, the Myredbook.com Republican felons, etc., Greg and Glen Chapel, and the Myredbook.com Republican felon Herbert family members, they're all conspiring. And Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc., Glen Chapel bragged about that, which is definitely hearsay exception utterances. I am not kidding at all. I am being 100% honest when I say they are conspiring, and that Myredbook.com Republican felon, etc., Glen Chapel admitted it out loud several times.